Then I took a smidge and applied it down there.
This one's wife. Will this bring divorce? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. It is the case that the incidence of divorce in a relationship becomes much higher when a narcissist is involved. As you would expect, this is as a consequence of either the narcissist becoming dissatisfied with the non-narcissist spouse, or that the non-narcissist spouse, the victim, essentially gets to a point of having had enough and they escape. There are various reasons why the narcissist spouse may well institute divorce proceedings, and they are linked to the disengagement triggers that I've explained to you, which revolve around the fact that the victim may no longer function and therefore is deemed unreliable, that they cause a massive wounding to the narcissist, and therefore, such as the extent of the threat to control, they are to be gotten rid of, that they cause massive exposure of the narcissist, which again is a massive threat to control, that the narcissist finds a better alternative elsewhere, which is one of the most common reasons for disengagement of the intimate partner primary source, and then fifthly, the circumstances of disengagement are that in essence the narcissist recognises that the individual has just become too difficult to control. This is essentially where the victim has seen through the narcissist and starts to realise that there is something not right and therefore isn't as compliant as they once were, making it much harder for the narcissist to maintain that control. So ultimately the narcissism says, this is like trying to maintain an occupied country and there's too much by way of insurgency. It's not worth it. Let's retreat. In the context of the dynamic between Harry and this one's wife, it's repeatedly the case that there's speculation about the state of their marriage. Many people do that as a consequence of certain events, the behaviour that they've witnessed from this one's wife, and of course, the fact that Harry often looks downright miserable. As I've explained, because she is a narcissist, this increases the likelihood of divorce happening. There are two schools of thought. There are those that think divorce won't actually happen because she hasn't got any other options, and Harry is that meal ticket because he is the royal and she's only known as a consequence of her involvement with Harry. While she doesn't like to admit that, that is the fact. And unless she is able to carve out some alternative for herself, either in terms of hopping to somebody else, wealthy and successful, or that she manages to go it alone, she'll continue to cling to Harry like the parasitic tick that she is. The alternative school of thought is that divorce is inevitable. She is a narcissist, and Harry isn't going to offer everything forever, with the consequence that when the money runs out or becomes too low, and the fact that he's not doing anything to address that, means that she's likely to jettison him. As I've analysed before, two of the most likely causes of disengagement would be that she finds a better alternative to Harry as the intimate partner primary source, and that Harry no longer functions, or alternatively, Harry no longer functions in an effective way. For the first to occur, she basically needs to go and find somebody else. She needs to ensnare somebody else who's hugely wealthy. There are a lot of wealthy people out there, but the prospects for her as an ageing narcissist with an unsavoury reputation means that the opportunities to sink her claws into someone suitably wealthy who would tolerate someone such as her are much diminished. It's not like she could wholly rely upon being a 20-year-old hardbody like some do. The individuals that she would be seeking would be more likely to look for an individual of that nature rather than a woman in her 40s who is known for being difficult and awkward. They want the compliant hardbody. the dutiful wife who does as she's told and reaps the rewards by way of being a kept woman. Alternatively, if she were not able to do that, but she was able to make a breakthrough so that she could find financial success on her own, then the necessity of finding a wealthy man would be less important, and therefore she could find an alternative man who didn't need to have that wealth, which would certainly open up the possibilities for her to a greater extent. This would be driven by the fact that, in effect, Harry has failed. His money has run out and he's done nothing to replace it. Therefore, those are the two likely avenues with regard to potential disengagement. At the moment, it certainly doesn't look like there are any opportunities available for her to find that wealthy man that will tolerate her. She has been trying to establish herself as financially independent. We have seen her with her attempts in relation to, as ever, she thinks that's going to make her a billionaire. It's not. And as a consequence of that, it looks like she's pivoting away from that Potemkin business as a consequence of her return to acting. And could it be the case that this is the one thing that might actually allow her to achieve some success, and as a consequence of doing so, causes divorce, and also does so for a number of different reasons? Well, Sarah Vine of the Mail seems to think that this could be problematic. She explains that this one's wife, of course, has made a return to acting, and she will reportedly play herself in Close Personal Friends, a comedy about two couples where one is famous and the other is not. Something similar has been done before, of course. Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant in Richard Curtis's blockbuster Notting Hill. No doubt the scriptwriters will again take the opportunity to reflect on the vicissitudes of fame in the modern world. Who knows? There may even be an opportunity to reprise that famous line of Roberts's, "I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her." Substitute boy for prince, and it'll bring the house down. It's a power move, writes Vine for the Duchess, and a good one. The power of a great movie is not to be underestimated. Audiences can become deeply invested in a well-written character, even more so if there's an element of art imitating life. If it's done skillfully, and this one's wife pulls it off, this could well end up being a chance for her to reshape her narrative, again, in a way she hasn't quite achieved through all her interview confessionals, podcasts and TV shows. It's also the first thing she's done since leaving royal life that feels truly authentic. Let's face it, no one really believes that she makes her own jam, dries her own rose petals, or actually eats any of the sickly sweet calorie-laden treats she shoves down viewers' throats. All that wafting around the kitchen arranging fruit, all that giggling in greenhouses, it just comes across as an act. There have been too many unintentionally revealing flashes of petulance, too many cracks in the icing, for the public to buy her saintly domestic goddess shtick. We've all witnessed the flash of steel when things don't quite go her way. Who can forget her icy, "You know, I'm Sussex now," to her Hollywood friend in Netflix with Love Show. Poor Mindy Kaling's cheeks are probably still smarting now. No, writes Vine, the reason this move feels authentic is because it's a return to form. Before she met Prince Harry, this one's wife was a fame-hungry actress. After a brief royal hiatus, she's back where she's always wanted to be. Only this time it's Hollywood knocking on her door, not the other way around. Well, I think that's rather overstating the proposition. Hollywood isn't knocking on her door. The Duchess was 36 when she finally walked up that aisle for the second time. Who knows where her acting career might have gone had she not married a prince. Now she comes back with a whole new USP. She has the added value of royal association. I suppose, writes Vine, the question in the back of some people's minds is, was this always part of the plan? Was it always her intention that in marrying Prince Harry, this one's wife would raise her profile to global stardom and open up opportunities simply not available to a jobbing actress on a little-known legal soap? One would have to be a tad cynical to believe that, but her subsequent fame-hungry behaviour and shamelessness, unequivocal trading on her royal connections, don't exactly give the lie to the idea. And there is also something about the speed at which she and Harry scarpered from royal life, barely 2 years after she started it, which does make one wonder. That's not to imply that she wasn't serious about marrying Harry, merely that the life of a dutiful royal spouse was never to be part of her repertoire. Well, you all know that this one's wife is driven by her narcissism, and her narcissism saw the opportunity to ensnare the dim-witted ginger prince, and it was hitting the jackpot in terms of the pursuit of the prime aims. Vine continues by posing the question, I wonder what her husband thinks. The official line from their friends is, Prince Harry is of course really supportive and quite simply wants this one's wife to do whatever brings her joy. I don't doubt it. I imagine it's more than his life is worth to displease her or stand in the way of her ambitions. Happy wife, happy life, as they say. Well, it goes further than that. It's simply the case that if he stands in the way of what she needs by way of control, he gets devalued, so he may well learn to keep his head down and be supportive. But he must wonder sometimes where all this leaves him. After all, acting is the Duchess's profession. It makes sense that she should return to it. Aside from his military roles, Prince Harry's only real job was being a royal, something that he's no longer able to do, largely thanks to her. Will it rankle to see his wife soaring to new heights of fame? Well, that's a little bit getting ahead of oneself to suggest that she's going to soar to new heights of fame. And it also suggests, no doubt, fortune, while he remains rather constrained in his options. Shooting schedules can be demanding, requiring long periods away from home. Plus, there's all the inevitable publicity. Will he suddenly find himself a spare in more than just the royal sense? A mere +1 to his glamorous wife? One would hope not, but it certainly seems to be the case that while the Duchess seems to have found plenty of purpose in her new life back home in the United States, Prince Harry is still searching for his. So often he appears as her bumbling sidekick, always dutifully amiable, but invariably more of an extra than a main character. Who knows, perhaps he's happy in that role, but that's not the impression one gets from reading his book, or observing his past actions. I wouldn't be surprised if, with his wife busy on set, he doesn't find himself quietly rebuilding a few bridges. It's perhaps no coincidence that he has also, this week, written a short essay entitled The Bond of the Band to the Bravery, in honour of Remembrance Sunday. Thus, this poses an interesting proposition. It does make some rather large assumptions, but let us go with it. What if this one's wife does return to acting and actually obtain some decent roles, whereby that caters to her narcissism because it allows her to control the audience, she gets excellent publicity from it, there are premieres and red carpets to turn up to, all the celebrity things that her narcissism loves. She gets well paid for it, which means that the reliance upon the money that came from Harry is no longer as great as it was. Now, as I say, I think it's a huge reach, because I don't think she's a particularly good actress. I don't think that she'll be able to get those roles. There is a limited amount of roles for a woman of her age. As we know, Hollywood is notoriously ageist towards women, and there are far more accomplished, far more talented actresses of her age and around who will be more likely to get those roles ahead of her. For her to find those plum roles, and for ones which are well paid, I think it's going to be difficult. But if we just for a moment assume that she is successful in that regard, then that would mean that Harry's role in her fuel matrix becomes less important and could potentially trigger disengagement. There is then also another pressure that builds as well. If she's busy away doing filming and publicity, and Harry finds himself relegated to second best, his resentment, and he has that strong narcissistic trait, may increase, whereby he feels left out, and he starts making demands of her. What will those demands be? A threat to her need for control. Or alternatively, he might just decide that she is too busy focused elsewhere, that she's no longer interested in him, and therefore he wants out, and therefore he precipitates divorce. There is the possibility, and I emphasise, I think that it is something of a reach to suggest that she will achieve success through acting in the way that Sarah Vine in The Mail thinks that she might do. But if she were to do so, then it strikes me as that potentially could be the very thing that triggers disengagement by this one's wife, or even potentially escape by Harry. She has less of a reliance upon him because she has become more successful in her own right, which means that she doesn't need him. And if he also, alongside that, is being problematic because he resents the fact that he's now become even more of a spare in his marriage, her narcissism will simply look at it and say, what purpose does he serve as the intimate partner primary source? Very little. Sure, we get fuel from him, but he doesn't provide the residual benefit of money. We're doing that ourselves. He doesn't assist with regard to publicity. We're doing that ourselves, which links into control and fuel. He's actually become difficult to control because he's become awkward and resentful as a consequence of the success that the narcissist is achieving. And therefore, quite possibly, if, and it is a big if, were it be the case for this one's wife to achieve some success with this return to acting, it could potentially result in the death knell for their marriage. What do you think, valuable viewers? Do you agree with me that it's a particular stretch that she will reach success, or do you think it's possible in the way that Sarah Vine thinks that it might be the case? And if so, do you think that might be the very thing that results in the demise of this marriage? Or do you think it'll never happen, and instead she'll continue to cling on to him because the royal connection is the only thing that she has got, it's the only thing for which she's known for, and she'll continue to blunder around, and this pivot towards acting will just be short-lived and it'll be another failure? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.